The mining facility on Kepler 247 wasn't much to look at. A collection of prefab modules and industrial processors scattered across the moon's cratered surface like discarded toys, connected by transparent tunnels that gleamed weakly in the light of a distant sun. To Dr. Sarah Chen, it was home, at least for the past 3 years while she studied the unique bacterial colonies thriving in the moon's subsurface ice. That's what her official records said, anyway. The first sign something was wrong came when the quantum communications array detected an unknown signal. Not the usual background noise of stellar radiation or the regular pings from Earth Command. This was something else, structured, artificial, and completely alien. Dr. Chen to the command center. Station Director Hayes' voice crackled through the intercom. There was an edge to his voice she hadn't heard before. We have a situation. Sarah was already moving, her hands automatically checking the small device concealed beneath her lab coat. A habit from another life, one that officially didn't exist. As she made her way through the transparent corridors, she caught glimpses of something massive appearing over the horizon. The object was smooth, organic-looking, with a surface that seemed to ripple like liquid metal. The command center was chaos when she arrived. Holographic displays showed multiple objects now, smaller craft detaching from the larger vessel. Their design was unlike anything in human records, all curved lines and seamless transitions, as if they'd been grown rather than built. First contact, Hayes whispered, his face pale in the glow of the displays. After all these years of searching, Sarah studied the approaching vessels with different eyes than her colleagues. Where they saw beauty, she saw weapon ports cleverly concealed within the flowing design. Where they saw an elegant approach pattern, she recognized combat tactics. These visitors were positioning themselves for optimal firing solutions. Send the greeting package, Hayes ordered, referring to the carefully crafted message of peace and scientific cooperation that every human outpost carried. And notify Earth Command immediately. Sir, Sarah spoke up, choosing her words carefully. Perhaps we should power up our defensive systems first. The mining facility had minimal armaments, officially for defense against asteroids, but better than nothing. Hayes gave her an odd look. Dr. Chen, these are potentially the first representatives of an alien civilization. We can't greet them with weapons hot. That would send entirely the wrong message. Sarah bit back her response. Her true background, former military AI integration specialist with over a decade of experience in electronic warfare, wasn't something she could reveal without compromising her deep cover assignment studying potential weapons applications of the moon's bizarre bacterial life. The alien vessels were close enough now that she could see fine details in their construction. The material of their hulls seemed to shift and flow, adapting to space conditions in real time. Incredible technology, but something about it tugged at her analytical mind. The patterns were too regular, too predictable, like code. They're responding. The communications officer's excited voice cut through her thoughts. The main screen filled with flowing symbols, beautiful, complex, and completely alien. Running it through the translation matrix, another officer announced, "It'll take time to decode completely, but the preliminary analysis suggests." The rest of his words were lost as the command center erupted in blinding light. Sarah was moving before conscious thought, muscle memory from years of combat training taking over. She hit the deck just as the first explosion tore through the facility's main dome. Through the chaos of alarms and screaming, her mind was already racing ahead. The aliens' attack pattern, their technology, the way their ships moved, it all pointed to a highly advanced but rigidly structured civilization, the kind that relied heavily on automated systems and predetermined protocols. The kind of civilization that might not understand just how dangerous it was to leave a human survivor who understood their systems. As the facility burned around her, Sarah Chen allowed herself a grim smile. These aliens, whoever they were, had just made their first mistake. They'd assumed that superior technology meant certain victory. They were about to learn otherwise. the hard way. Reaching beneath her lab coat, she activated the quantum computer masquerading as a simple medical device. As emergency protocols initiated facility-wide shutdown, she began copying and analyzing every scrap of data their sensors had gathered about the alien ships. Their weapons might be advanced, their technology seemingly magical, but at its core, it was still just code. And if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding ways to make code do things it was never meant to do. The Virith Collective, as they would later identify themselves in their victory broadcast, had no way of knowing they'd just started a war they couldn't possibly win. Not because of superior numbers or technology, but because they'd failed to understand a fundamental truth about humanity. Give us a tool, any tool, and we'll find a way to turn it into a weapon. Give us a system, any system, and we'll find a way to make it work for us instead of against us. And they'd just given Dr. Sarah Chen access to the most sophisticated technological ecosystem she'd ever seen. The aliens thought they were being merciful, leaving one survivor to tell the tale of their power. Instead, they'd just armed their own destruction. Let the hunt begin. The escape pod was never meant for long-term habitation, but Dr. Sarah Chen had made it work for the past 2 weeks. Its cramped interior had become a command center of sorts, walls covered in holographic displays showing streams of intercepted Virith data. The aliens had left her for dead in the wreckage of the mining facility, never bothering to scan the supposedly primitive escape pod that had drifted away in the chaos. Their second mistake. Sarah's fingers danced across virtual keyboards as she worked, her quantum computer interfacing with salvaged Virith technology. During the attack, she'd managed to capture one of their smaller probe drones, the equivalent of a maintenance bot. Now it lay dissected on her makeshift workbench, its liquid metal components carefully isolated and studied. "Gotcha," she whispered as another encryption layer fell to her analysis. The Virith's technological advantage was impressive, but it came with a critical weakness: overconfidence. Their security systems were advanced but inflexible, designed to repel brute force attacks, but vulnerable to the kind of creative problem-solving that humans excelled at. The drone's memory cores revealed something fascinating. The Virith ships weren't just connected. They were symbiotic. Each vessel was part of a larger network, sharing data and resources in real time. It was brilliant engineering, but to Sarah's experienced eyes, it was also an exploitable vulnerability. A proximity alert pulled her attention to the external sensors. A Virith patrol ship was passing nearby, its organic-looking hull gleaming. Sarah held her breath, though she knew her pod's modified stealth systems would hold. She'd reprogrammed them using principles learned from the drone, creating a hybrid of human and Virith technology that was proving remarkably effective. The patrol ship's scan swept over her location. Sarah watched as her countermeasures engaged, feeding the alien vessel exactly the kind of background radiation it expected to see. Another feature of their rigid, predictable systems: once you understood their baseline expectations, you could feed them exactly what they wanted to detect. As the ship passed, Sarah returned to her work. The drone's neural network was a marvel of engineering, but its basic architecture wasn't so different from the AI systems she'd worked with back on Earth. Different syntax, different protocols, but the underlying logic was universal. Mathematics, after all, was the one truly universal language. Her quantum computer chimed, indicating it had finished its latest analysis. Sarah's eyes widened as she reviewed the results. The Virith weren't just linked in combat. Their entire society was built around technological synchronization. Their ships, their weapons, even their communication systems, all connected through a vast neural network that spanned their entire territory. It was elegant. It was efficient. It was exactly what she needed. Sarah began coding, building a virus unlike anything the Virith had ever encountered. Not a simple destructive program, but something far more insidious. It would spread through their network, gathering data, learning their patterns, and most importantly, establishing backdoors that even their advanced security systems wouldn't detect. The key was mimicry. The virus systems were designed to recognize and eliminate foreign code, but Sarah's virus would be different. It would act like their own technology, learning and adapting just as their ships did. But unlike their rigidly programmed systems, her creation would have something else: human unpredictability. "Let's see how your perfect network handles a little chaos," she murmured, finalizing the code. The virus would take time to spread, moving slowly enough to avoid detection, but its effects would be devastating. Every system it touched would become a potential ally, every piece of Virith technology a possible weapon. Sarah glanced at the patrol ship, now disappearing over the moon's horizon. Soon, she would need to move. The escape pod's resources wouldn't last forever, and she had bigger plans. The Virith had left scattered wreckage from the mining facility's destruction, raw materials that, with the right application of their own technology, could become something very interesting indeed. They thought their technological superiority made them invincible. They were about to learn that technology was just a tool, and humans had millennia of experience turning tools into weapons. As her virus began its slow infiltration of the patrol ship's systems, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Virith believed they were hunting her, tracking down the last survivor of their attack. They didn't realize that she was actually hunting them, turning their own network into her personal battleground. The real war was just beginning, and it would be fought in a domain where human creativity and adaptability would prove far more valuable than mere technological advancement. The digital realm was about to become her hunting ground, and the Virith were about to learn why leaving the human AI specialist alive had been their greatest mistake. 3 months after the attack, the Virith patrol fleet detected an anomaly in Sector 7 of their newly claimed territory. The readings showed a small cluster of human mining vessels, apparently abandoned during the initial conquest. Standard protocol dictated immediate destruction of any remaining human technology, but as the patrol approached, something strange happened. Their sensors couldn't get a clear lock on the vessels. Inside her upgraded command center, now a repurposed mining control room hidden in an asteroid's core, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the patrol's confusion with satisfaction. The virus she'd released had done its work perfectly, spreading through the Virith network like a digital wildfire. Now she had eyes and ears throughout their fleet, and more importantly, she could make their own sensors lie to them. But today's demonstration would show them something new. "Let's give them a proper greeting," she murmured, initiating the sequence she'd spent months preparing. The abandoned mining vessels had been her greatest project, transformed through a combination of salvaged Virith technology and human ingenuity. Where the aliens saw primitive human ships, she'd created something unprecedented, a hybrid fleet that spoke both languages, human and Virith, but answered only to her. The first patrol ship moved to engage, its weapon systems charging. Sarah watched their tactical display with interest, noting how they maintained formation even when confused. The Virith were nothing if not consistent. Time to change the rules. With a few commands, she activated her ghost fleet. The mining vessels, their hulls now laced with reprogrammed Virith nanomaterials, began to move. But not as clumsy human ships. They moved with the fluid grace of Virith vessels, their previously rigid structures flowing and adapting like liquid metal. The patrol fleet's confusion was evident in their communication chatter, which Sarah's systems easily intercepted and translated. They were facing something that should have been impossible: human vessels that moved like Virith ships, yet somehow resisted all attempts at network integration. That was just the beginning. The mining vessels had originally been designed to break down asteroids, using powerful energy beams to slice through rock. Sarah had modified these systems, incorporating principles from Virith weapons technology. The result was something entirely new: hybrid weapons that combined human precision with alien power. The first shot from her modified mining laser caught the Virith completely off guard. Their shields, calibrated to defend against their own weapon signatures, failed to recognize the threat until it was too late. The blast cut through their defenses like they weren't there, slicing clean through the patrol ship's hull. But Sarah wasn't interested in destruction. Not yet. This was a demonstration. As the patrol fleet scrambled to respond, her ghost ships executed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for their design. They danced through space with impossible agility, each movement calculated to demonstrate a simple truth. Everything the Virith thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. The remaining patrol ships attempted to coordinate their response, but Sarah's virus had already compromised their network. Their targeting systems glitched at critical moments. Their communications suffered mysterious delays. Even their dynamic hull systems seemed sluggish, responding seconds too late to threats. Impossible, one of the Virith commanders broadcast, their usual precise language breaking down in confusion. These are primitive vessels. They cannot. The transmission cut off as Sarah demonstrated another innovation. The mining vessels' old ore processing systems, reimagined through the lens of Virith technology, now generated localized interference fields that could disrupt their neural network. Not enough to cause serious damage, but enough to prove it could be done. She opened a channel to the Virith fleet, using their own communication protocols. The message was simple, delivered in their own language. Consider this a warning. Your technology is not beyond our understanding. Your networks are not secure. Your supremacy is an illusion. As the patrol fleet retreated in disarray, Sarah began the next phase of her plan. The Ghost Fleet had proven itself in combat, but it was only the beginning. Throughout the sector, other abandoned mining vessels waited to be transformed. The Virith had left them scattered across space, dismissing them as primitive human garbage. They were about to learn an important lesson about humanity. We don't need the most advanced technology to win. We just need to understand how technology works, any technology, and imagine new ways to use it. The real question wasn't whether her hybrid fleet could defeat the Virith. The question was whether the Virith could adapt quickly enough when every piece of technology they relied on could potentially be turned against them. Sarah suspected she already knew the answer. After all, the ability to adapt, to reimagine, to repurpose, that was a uniquely human strength, and she was about to give them a masterclass in human innovation. The Virith High Command gathered in their neural nexus. Their consciousness merged into a single unified entity as they assessed the growing crisis. Their perfect network, the pride of their civilization, was experiencing something they'd never encountered before: doubt. Dr. Sarah Chen watched their confusion through compromised sensors. Her hybrid command center now expanded throughout a network of asteroid bases. The Virith's neural link, meant to be their greatest strength, was becoming their greatest vulnerability. It had started small random thoughts appearing in their shared consciousness, fragments of human knowledge seeping through the backdoors she created. At first, they dismissed these as system glitches, but the intrusions grew more sophisticated, more targeted. Today, she would show them true fear. Initiating protocol babel, Sarah commanded. The virus she'd spent months perfecting activated across their network. Unlike traditional cyber attacks, this one targeted the very foundation of Virith society, their unified consciousness. In their neural nexus, the first discordant thoughts began to emerge. Ship commanders suddenly found themselves questioning orders they'd never questioned before. Engineers started seeing flaws in designs they'd always considered perfect. The rigid hierarchy of their collective mind began to fracture. A Virith battle group, responding to what they thought was a high-priority command, arrived at an empty sector only to find 3 other battle groups had received the same phantom order. While they attempted to understand the confusion, Sarah's Ghost Fleet struck from hiding, using their own tactics against them. But the true attack wasn't physical, it was psychological. Through the compromised network, she began feeding them human history, not the sanitized official records, but the raw, chaotic story of human advancement. They saw how humans had learned from every defeat, adapted after every setback, grown stronger through diversity and disagreement rather than unity and conformity. The Virith commanders watched in horror as their perfect synchronization began to fail. Some ships started operating independently, their crew's neural links corrupted by exposure to human thought patterns. Others remained connected but began experiencing something alien to their unified consciousness: individual perspective. Your greatest weakness, Sarah broadcast across their command channel, isn't your technology. It's your inability to understand how it could be used differently. You built a perfect system and never imagined it could become a perfect weapon against you. In the neural nexus, panic spread like a virus of its own. The High Command tried to isolate affected sections of the network, but it was too late. Every quarantine attempt just created new vulnerabilities for Sarah's virus to exploit. Their perfectly orchestrated responses became predictable weaknesses. The virus science vessel, studying the strange behavior patterns, made a devastating discovery. The human virus wasn't just corrupting their network, it was teaching it. Each attempted defense, each failed countermeasure, only made the invasion more sophisticated. They were facing an enemy that learned faster than they could adapt. Sarah watched as the mighty virus fleet began to splinter. Some ships severed their neural links entirely, choosing isolation over corruption. Others formed smaller networks, trying to maintain some coordination while limiting exposure. The perfect unity that had made them unbeatable was unraveling. "You thought unity meant strength," she transmitted. "But there's strength in diversity, in disagreement, in chaos. Humans don't need perfect coordination to be effective. We thrive on adaptation, on finding new ways to solve problems. Your network tried to impose order. We're teaching it to embrace chaos." The virus High Command faced an impossible choice. Their entire civilization was built on the premise of unified consciousness. To fight this human virus, they would have to do something they'd never done before: think individually, adapt individually, fight individually. They would have to become more human. As their perfect network collapsed into controlled chaos, Sarah prepared for the final phase of her plan. The virus would either adapt to this new way of thinking or they would fall. Either way, they would never again mistake technological superiority for true advancement. Because the real power of humanity wasn't in our tools or our weapons, it was in our minds. Our ability to think differently, to question, to imagine new possibilities. And now, through Sarah's virus, even their perfect network was learning to think like a human. The war wasn't over, but the outcome was already decided. The virus would either evolve beyond their rigid perfection, or they would be destroyed by the very unity they prized. And in either case, humanity would have taught them the most important lesson of all. True intelligence isn't about having the best system, but about having the flexibility to reimagine any system. 6 months after the destruction of the mining facility, the virus Collective's flagship emerged from faster-than-light travel near Earth's solar system. But unlike their first arrival at the mining outpost, this time they came not as conquerors, but as supplicants. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of her command asteroid, watching as the massive vessel approached. Its once seamless hull now showed evidence of modification, crude by virus standards, but remarkably effective. They were learning, adapting, changing, just as her virus had intended. The incoming transmission carried none of their former arrogance. "We seek audience with the one called Chen," the message stated simply. "We bring terms of surrender and questions." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The questions were more important than the surrender. They signified the real victory, not over the virus's military might, but over their rigid worldview. "Proceed to coordinates Alpha 7, she transmitted back, "and welcome to human space, this time as guests, not invaders." The flagship's docking procedure was telling. Instead of their usual perfect, programmed approach, the ship moved with obvious human influences, small corrections, adaptable responses, individual decision-making, rather than network-driven precision. They were already incorporating human unpredictability into their methods. The virus delegation that emerged from their ship was equally changed. Where once they moved in perfect synchronization, now each member showed subtle individual variations. Their neural network remained, but it had evolved. Unity tempered by independence, perfection enhanced by adaptation. Their leader, Supreme Controller Zix, approached Sarah with what she recognized as their version of humility. "We have studied the data you spread through our network," they said. "Thousands of years of human history, countless failures, setbacks, disasters. Yet each time, you emerged stronger, different, better." Sarah nodded. "That's the part you didn't understand about us. Humans don't seek perfection. We seek improvement. We don't fear failure. We learn from it. Every defeat teaches us something new, shows us a different way to solve problems." "Your virus," another Virith spoke up, independently, something that would have been unthinkable months ago. "It did not simply attack our network. It taught us, changed us, forced us to think, individually." "That was the point," Sarah explained. "Your technology wasn't your weakness. Your inability to imagine using it differently was. Humans don't need the most advanced tools to win. We just need to understand how tools work, and then we imagine new possibilities." She gestured to the hybrid fleet of mining vessels that now surrounded them. "Look at these ships. By your standards, they're primitive, crude. But we took that primitive technology and combined it with pieces of your advanced systems to create something new, something neither of us could have created alone." The Virith leaders processed this, their new individualized consciousness allowing them to consider perspectives that would have once been filtered out by their network. "We came to destroy what we saw as a primitive species," Zix admitted. "Instead, you taught us that true advancement isn't about having the best technology. It's about having the imagination to use any technology in new ways." Sarah activated a holographic display, showing the changes her virus had caused in their network. "Your civilization achieved incredible things through unity and precision. Humans achieved incredible things through diversity and adaptation. Perhaps the real lesson here is that both approaches have value." "You could have destroyed us," another Virith observed. "Our network was completely compromised. Our ships were at your mercy, yet you chose to teach us instead." "Because that's another thing about humans," Sarah replied. "We understand that sometimes the best way to win isn't to destroy your enemy, but to help them become something better, something more." The surrender document they presented was unlike anything in human diplomatic history, not just terms of peace, but a proposal for collaboration. The Virith offered their advanced technology, and in return, they wanted to learn, to understand how humans thought, how we adapted, how we imagined new possibilities. As Sarah reviewed the terms, she reflected on the irony. The Virith had attacked humanity believing their superior technology made them invincible. Instead, they discovered that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't our tools or our ships or our weapons. It was our minds, our creativity, our ability to look at any situation, any technology, any challenge, and imagine new ways to approach it. They had left one human alive, thinking they were showing mercy. Instead, they had given humanity the perfect opportunity to teach them the most important lesson of all. In the vast expanse of space, the species that survives isn't the one with the most advanced technology. It's the one that never stops learning how to use it in new ways. The war was over. The real work, the sharing of knowledge, the exchange of ideas, the combining of Virith precision with human creativity, was just beginning. And somewhere out there, other advanced civilizations would learn about what happened when the mighty Virith collective encountered a single human survivor. They would learn to think very carefully about underestimating humanity's ability to adapt, to imagine, to overcome. After all, that's what humans do best.